I asked for your best Baldur Gate 3 and multi-classes, and you guys really gave them to me. So, we have a lot of different Baldur's Gate classes that we're going to be looking at today, and I like a lot of them quite a lot. I think we have somewhere upwards of 7 different classes we're going to be looking at that I got from my YouTube comments and my TikTok comments. So, the first one we're going to be looking at one is this one, which is a Wizard Tempest Cleric, because you can dump Wisdom. It allows for the Channel Divinity, Heavy Armor, and other bonuses that you would mostly function as a wizard. Now, there are two comments that are basically really similar to this. I think we have another one right here with Storm Cleric. So Storm Cleric, Tempest Cleric, it's the same thing. They both are very, very good classes and both have very, very similar things that function pretty much the same way. There's a little bit of small differences between this. And the reason why this is so good, the reason why Wizard and Tempest Cleric is so good, or Storm Cleric, maxing lightning damage with a sorcerer build, with the dual casting Glyph of Warding is pretty good. The reason why these are so good, clerics, Tempest clerics in particular, have the Channel Divinity Destructive Wrath. And that is that starting at level 2, you can use your Channel Divinity to wield the power of Unchecked Ferocity. When you roll lightning or thunder damage, you can use your Channel Divinity to do max damage instead of rolling, which is very, very good and only continues to get more powerful as time goes on, right? If you're blasting out a really powerful lightning bolt or chain lightning or something like that, and you're able to automatically do max damage, that can change the entire field from being very overwhelmed to pretty much entirely obliterated. It's very strong. Now, the second one here, if I can actually open the right thing, the second one here actually talks about how they're going to dual cast Glyph of Warding using the sorcerer thing, which is really cool. That means that you can like set up a lot of traps in advance, and you can make those traps when they're triggered do max damage, which is very, very cool. I believe that Glyph of Warding, I have it open up somewhere in here, it is 5d8 damage of your choice. So you can choose lightning or thunder, and then when you use that Channel Divinity, which you can use twice, I believe, by level 6, if I'm remembering correctly, you can use it twice, which is very, very good. That is good damage that you can whip out literally every short rest. Yeah, beginning at level 6, you can use a Channel Divinity twice between rests. You can use it 3 times between rests. You can finish a short or long rest to get them back and regain expended uses. So just the fact that you can max damage any lightning or thunder move using a Channel Divinity is absolutely amazing, and I think that is a really, really great build from these two. Another one that I thought was really good, they're talking about kind of like a little tankier build, that has a little variety. They're not like 100% sure how it works, but dipping a level or two into Barbarian, 2 levels into Druids, and then everything else into Fighter. So you'll have Rage, which will be very good for reducing damage. And he uses Druid to transform into a bear, which is also very nice, because when you do transform into or shift into a different animal when it comes to Druids, I believe you get their HP, and then when their HP hits the 0, you transform back into whatever your HP was before you shifted, which is really cool. And then obviously, if you have the other 8 levels in the fighter, you're going to be getting, action surge. You're going to be getting You're going to be getting extra attacks, so you can attack twice. You're going to be getting 2 ASI improvements at least. Fighters do get more ASI improvements, so maybe by 8th level they actually might get a 3rd one. Let's go ahead and look that up real quick. Because fighters and rogues have a little bit different ASI requirements. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. So you would get 3 ASI improvements, so that's pretty damn good. So one of the reasons why fighters is such a great class, especially for if you're a new player into D&D, fighter is relatively easy to understand. You go out there, you attack them with melee weapons, and you just keep attacking. And it gets a little bit more complicated. Let's see if you do something like outside of champion, you do battle master. I don't remember if that's one of the subclasses that are available in Baldur's Gate 3, but it is a very fun class to use. We have some more here though that are great, and I love them. We got an unconventional but godly combo is Berserker Barbarian in Shadow Monk. Now I wasn't like 100% sure how this would be like such a really good class. They didn't really go into like a depth explanation to it, but it did get a few upvotes. So I did go ahead and look into it myself. And I don't know if it's necessarily like an ungodly combo, but I do think that it is a very fun one. Not only do you get, you have key points that you're able to use, and you're going to be going, at least I imagine, level 6 monk and level 6 barbarian, because you probably want shadow step, which I think is probably the fun side of Way of the Shadow for monk, because you get 6th level, you gain the ability to step into the shadow from one another. If you are dim and darkness, as a bonus action, you can teleport 60 feet to an unoccupied space. This is also in dim and dark, or dim light or darkness, and also have advantage on the first melee attack. So it's kind of like a free reckless attack for your first attack without having to always do reckless attack, which also gives you the attack on yourself. And then Berserk Barbarian, at level 6, you have mindless raging. You can't be charmed or frightened while raging. If you are charmed or frightened, the duration is suspended for the rage. And then Frenzy, also, when you go into Frenzy, you go into Rage, the duration you're in, you make a single melee attack. As a bonus action of one of your turns, after this one, you rage and you suffer 1 level exhaustion. So it has like a kind of a good mix where you're a lot more agile than you otherwise normally would be as a barbarian, because barbarians aren't usually very fast, but monks are pretty fast. You factor in the Way of the Shadow, and now you're able to teleport from one place to another around the map and really take advantage of being a frenzied, raged barbarian that is going to be whipping out massive damage and teleporting, and people aren't really going to be able to get away from that because 60 feet is pretty far. A typical class is only going to have 30. You'll have a little bit more, I believe, as a monk by then, but it's not going to exceed 60. And if you wanted to exceed 60, you're probably going to have to dash. That means that you don't have to use movement and dashing and then not be able to attack, because usually dashing takes up your entire action unless you're a rogue. So I did think this was like a kind of interesting combo in itself. Now, the next one that we have here, and I've seen a few mixes of this. So we're also going for the Barb Monk. Features like these will be added a less stat focus, like Rage being a flat damage not tied to a specific attack like Rage. So you can make a Blade Lock with a few levels of Bards. Now, I'm not 100% sure if you'll be able to make a Blade Lock in Baldur's Gate 3 because they don't have Hexblade. Usually when people make blade locks, it's because they go through the Hexblade archetype, and I don't believe that's present. I do think that there is still the blade grimoire thing that you can still take, but it's not nearly as effective as Hexblade. Hexblade probably will get added into the game eventually, but with the modding that'll be in the game, I imagine the Hexblade will probably be one of the first things added into the game and make Blade Lock really cool. A lot of people, these are, I think, some big brain ones. I think these are both similar in a lot of ways. We grabbed these two. This is the one from TikTok, and this is the last one we have from YouTube. And I think that one of the ones that are really cool here is, people are going like, oh, either taking a very squishy class, usually. There was a few comments that are similar to these two. We take an initially pretty squishy class that usually is wearing light armor at most. So a wizard usually wearing light armor. Cleric sometimes wearing light armor depending on what you think. So the same thing here is like a wizard with armor. An action surge sounds fun, so a wizard fighter. So that means they could, go fighter and wear heavy armor as long as they meet the requirement to wear that heavy armor. And they are no longer that squishy caster that can get hit easily. And then they also said that the meta magic feature in changing spell elements. So you could do Tempest Cleric with Sorcerer, and that goes back to the one that we talked about initially, is that if you can change the spell element of any spell, and for example, change a fireball change it into lightning damage, so that means you would go like Wizard, Tempest Cleric, Sorcerer. And I thought that was a really interesting combo. It's not something that I would have thought off the top of my head. So you can kind of use your sorcery points to change any of your spells to be lightning or thunder damage spaced, and then use your clerical domain or your channel divinity to hit max damage, which I thought is freaking cool. And then this last one, this guy said he's terrible at making builds, but dipping into the war cleric domain would be interesting for martial builds. A level 1 war cleric grants you war priest proficiency, martial weapons, and heavy armor. War priest, you also get your god delivers bolts of inspiration while you're engaged in battle. And when you use an attack, you can make one weapon attack as a bonus action and use this feature. So basically, just getting those dips into the clerics for this feature, you can then boost up your damage a little bit just for one spell, which is pretty nice, right? If you are, for example, if you were going ranger, you were doing some kind of melee ranger build, you can take a dip into the ward domain cleric, and so when you're going into all your attacks, you can already have a pretty decent amount of wisdom modifier, so you might have already 2 or 3 that you can use between every long rest. And I think that's a little nice. It's a nice little bonus that you can add into. And you can add some flavor into what kind of class you're kind of doing here, what kind you're kind of going for. Because usually, as a lot of people have made me painfully aware in my comments, that most multi-classes are not necessarily OP. It's more they are fun, they are thematic, they can do interesting things that they otherwise normally wouldn't be, which is what I kind of tried to point out in my last video, except I was a big dum-dum and didn't realize, oh crap, fighters can also just be based in dex, because usually when I think fighters, I think strength. So technically, the build that I made doesn't require any removal of restrictions at all, but it still was an interesting front-loaded one-round damage build. In fact, I think I even missed how much the criticals were able to do on that multi-class build. But regardless, these ideas were all really cool. I'm interested to see how these things will like actually interact in the game, because when we're playing D&D and you're doing it a tabletop or online or whatever, and you go over these things, a lot of these things are not necessarily perfectly explained in the rules, so it's a lot of things up to the DMs. But when you're playing in a game on an actual video game, they have to make definitive decisions on how things will interact and what will actually get damage bonuses. Did they think of everything in the past 3 years since they released it for early access? Unlikely. There's just a lot of stuff that people can think of. Will it get added in eventually? Probably. If not, will it get fixed by modders if they have modding support, which I believe they're going to? Absolutely. But anyways, I'm getting real excited as we get closer to Baldur's Gate 3 releasing. We are how far are we now? We are a little over 2 weeks away. 2 weeks and 3 days. It's getting real close. And it's gonna be real close for me too, because I'm gonna be moving on this day, and the game releases on this day. So we are going to be packed full of gaming, and then just a little over a month later we're going to have Starfield come out, and that's going to be quite the month. 2 months of gaming since 16. I just finished Final Fantasy 16. But anyways, I will see you guys all later. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day. If you guys have any more build ideas that you want to talk about, go ahead. Or if you have any topics you want me to just address in Baldur's Gate 3, you're curious, you're not really sure what the answer is to something, or whether or not something will exist, I'll go ahead and make a video about it. But I will see you all later. Bye.